Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the new Pioneer
AVH W4500NEX. Stay tuned. So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and unbox it and see what comes in the box. We get a remote control, a bag of screws with one zip tie, the main power plug, which we'll talk about more in a second, so we'll just set it right here. One USB extension. Now keep in mind, this radio has two USBs on the back of it, so you may want to get a second. The GPS antenna, even though this does not have GPS, it'll all make sense in a little bit. The hands-free microphone, and the RCA input cable. Since we're on that, we'll go ahead and unbag it, and we'll show you what is on this. Now you have a 4-volt pre-out, white is your front, green is your rear, and black is your subwoofer. You also have your auxiliary input here, your video input here, your rear monitor output. This is to go to a rear seat entertainment. The audio out is going to be on the back of the radio, which we'll show you in a minute. One thing to note about that, this has a true dual zone output for media, except for the HDMI. So this will, if you put a DVD in it, the audio and the video will play out of the rear monitor and you can watch or listen to something else up front. This is your audio input here for the matching video input. The brown is going to be your rear camera input. Now video input has dual functionality. And out of the box, this will be an actual video input that you can play a source through. In the menu, which we'll show you later, you can switch this to a front camera input. So you can have front and rear camera inputs off of the harness. On the main harness, we'll take a look at the wiring real quick. Light green is going to be the emergency brake input. Black is going to be ground. Yellow is going to be constant 12 volts or memory. Orange white is going to be illumination. Red is going to be accessory or key. Blue white is going to be your remote turn on output or amplifier turn on. The speaker outputs, which come as white, gray, green, and purple. White is the driver's front, gray is the passenger front, green is the driver's rear, and purple is the passenger rear. Solids are positive, stripes are negative, and that'd be a black stripe. You have pink, which is your vehicle speed sense input. This is going to be used in conjunction if you're going to be doing wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. And then you have your purple white, which is your 12 volt positive reverse input wire. So this would get hooked up to something that is going to put out a positive output when the car is in reverse to activate the camera. You get a warranty card and some stickers for the USB. You get the installation manual. You get the quick start guide. Then you get some amendments as well. One other thing before I forget, because this is a detachable face, you do get a neoprene case for the detachable face. Let's go ahead and get this out of the box and we'll take a look at the back. Now starting in the bottom passenger side corner, this aux jack looking input is actually the rear audio output. So this would be in conjunction with the rear monitor output RCA to go to that overhead or headrest in order to have the sound and the video play standalone in those devices. Right above that is the wired remote control input. On the inside, the smaller jack is going to be for your microphone. The main power plug here. The GPS antenna gets plugged in here. USB 1 is a 5 volt 1.5 amp output, as well as USB 2 is the same. This is your RCA input here. So this cable here, it's plugged in like that. Next to that is going to be for your add-on navigation system if you need that. That is the AVH W280. Your HD FM antenna gets plugged in here. Sirius XM goes here. That's the SVX300 add-on tuner. It still has an HDMI input. Now like I said, this will not stream to your rear monitor output. Because this is an HDMI, which is a protected media, it will not come out of this style output. Lastly, we have the iData Maestro RR input here. Now we'll go ahead and flip it over, power it up, and talk about the other features. Now when the unit first powers up, it's going to give you this display right here. The display itself is a 6.94 inch 16:9 VGA 800 by 480 clear resistive touchscreen. It's also motorized, which once we get past this, we'll open and close it. First thing you're going to do is pick which language you'd like. English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, English and Chinese. Select next, network or standard mode. This has to do with the EQ. How to tell the difference as far as which one you're doing is if you're doing anything that has a rear speaker, you're going to want standard mode. Standard mode is for front, rear, and sub. Network mode is for tweeter, mid, and sub. So we'll go ahead and select standard. Now once we get to the EQ settings, we'll show you both of them so you can kind of get a better idea. When the unit first powers up, it's going to look like this. We can go ahead and change the cosmetics looks of it by selecting gears, going to our art palette, selecting backgrounds, and here we can choose any one of the still images we'd like. We have 3 moving images, 2 here and 1 here, as well as we can import our own background if we would like. We can switch the illumination here. This is for the buttons. We can choose whatever color we'd like by moving the dragger back and forth. We can change the main theme. So if we'd like to change this to match our dash, we can do that as well. And then you can change the look of the clock. New is splash screen. So when the unit first powered up, you saw this. You can also see this, or you can import your own image for the splash screen. Make sure to hit apply though when you're done. Now as far as that detachable face goes, if you hit the eject button here, you have your choice: eject for CD, SD card, or detach the face. Select here. There's going to be a lever right here that you flick, and the unit detaches. If you notice, there's 2 arrows right here, and on the bottom of the face are 2 hooks. Hook into those, push down, and the face will lock back in place. When it first powers up after detaching the face, it's going to ask you if you want to set a password or don't ask me next time. If you set a password and you forget your password, you're in trouble. Pioneer charges in order to reset that. We suggest pressing the do not ask next time. Now there are some hard buttons across the bottom of the screen. Your volume up and down, your picture in a picture. This will also switch between the regular screen and your camera. You have the home page. Here you can access all your sources as well as your smartphone for either Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, or WebLink. If you hold the main menu button, it'll also power down the unit. Hit any button to turn it back on. Next to that is going to be your WebLink track up and track down user interface, as well as if you press and hold it, it's your mute. You have the back arrow button, which will take you back 1 step from where you previously were at. You have your push to talk feature here, and then you have your eject. Now when you're in eject, you can also do tilt screen. Now since we talked about camera, let's take a look at the camera real quick. For that we'll go into settings, tools, camera settings. Once in camera settings, default now is on. In previous versions of the radio, default was off, so when you'd get into the car, you'd have no backup camera. Now it's set to on, which is very nice. Second camera input located here, we can go ahead and tap that. If we turn that on, that'll go ahead and activate that AV input and turn that into the second camera input. They've also added back in guidelines. To adjust those, simply use your finger and move them around, find where you like them, and you're good to go. Hit the back arrow and it'll save them where you were. Now if we turn on the backup camera, you'll notice it's gone ahead and added this 1 and 2. So what this will do is this will allow you to switch between the front camera and the rear camera. You also have this 2, which is timer. If you tap this, it'll go ahead and take you back to your main radio screen. There you can make any adjustments you want, and 10 seconds after you press the last button, it'll do this and turn back to whichever camera you had on. If you select X, that'll go ahead and shut that feature down. Now if you trigger the backup camera via the purple white wire, you'll notice the backup lines aren't on display here. If you touch this icon here in the top, they'll come on. Now every time you take it out of reverse and then put it back in reverse, you'll notice the lines are off because they reset every time you take it in and out of reverse. If you'd like it back on for what you're doing, simply turn it on. Now as we said, the unit has a 4-volt preamp section. It also has 14 watts by 4 and uses a dual core CPU boasting 2 gigabytes of memory and 4 gigabytes of flash. That is one of the main features that separates these higher end NEX models from the step down. Now let's take a look at some of the sources we have. There's 2 ways to access source. You can hit the arrow here and it'll give you a drop down source menu that you can scroll up and down through. Or if you'd like to see all your sources, go ahead and hit the home page, hit the AV, and it'll list all your sources. Now in both of them you can rearrange how you want all these to lay out. And you'll notice on here some of them are grayed out, and on here some of them didn't even exist. So these are the sources that are available to you, and these are all the sources that the radio is capable of. But in some cases you might need extra things. Like where you see the 2 car icons, you do need to have the iData Maestro RR for those to function. Here you can also find access to the backup camera again. The one nice thing about Pioneer is they do have multiple buttons usually to do the same thing. It makes navigating through the radio a little bit easier. You have the HD radio, CD DVD, your USB 1 input. You can do Pandora from your phone if you're not using CarPlay or Android Auto. It has Bluetooth audio. With Bluetooth audio, you can do multiple phones for streaming. However, because this does have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, this feature might not be something you're going to be using much of. But if you decide you do want to use it, you can select from multiple phones for both Bluetooth calling and Bluetooth music. Now, if there's two of you in the car and both phones are paired to it, you can make and receive phone calls from either phone. It'll automatically switch to that phone when a phone call comes in, and you can pick which phone you'd like to listen to the music off of. Since we talked about dual zone, where it says here rear, this is where you can pick what you'd like it to display. If you had a DVD in the unit, it would populate DVD, and you could touch that and it would display on the screen in the rear. There again, you also have another way to turn on your rear camera. Now, since we talked about Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it is the main feature on this, both wireless. Apple CarPlay is 100% wireless, meaning it doesn't matter which iPhone you have, it will go ahead and do a wireless option for you. It'll also do wired, that's entirely up to you. Android Auto is a bit more picky. For Android Auto, you do have to have a specific phone in order to do the wireless. However, wired will always work. Let's go ahead and show you what that looks like. Now, the first option we're going to show you is Apple CarPlay. In Apple CarPlay, you can do Maps. You have 3 maps to choose from. You have Waze, you have Apple Maps, as well as Google. And here is going to be all your music services, such as Pandora, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Tidal. Get back to your main menu, simply select the Pioneer icon, and it'll take you here. Now, once here, if you have WebLink downloaded to your phone, you can go ahead and touch that, and it'll switch to WebLink for you. In WebLink, you have a few more options available to you. You have a music player, a video player, Yelp reviews, YouTube, and Zomato. Most people are going to be interested in what the YouTube can do for you. So here you have search, and once you find a video you like, it'll go ahead and start playing for you. The one thing you will notice is that it's not extremely smooth, and the audio does reflect that. So it's not 100% perfect, but if you're just looking for some content to play, might be something you're interested in. Now, to get back, simply hit the home icon. Now, if you have your Android phone connected, you'll notice that Android Auto icon will appear here. Simply tap it, it'll bring up Android Auto. To use wired Android Auto on this radio, you do have to use USB 2. USB 1 is going to be for iPhone, USB 2 is going to be for Android. Once in Android, there again, you can do stuff like navigate. You have Google Maps as well as Waze available to you. Your music is also going to be available to you. Here you have your Pandora, Google Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio will also be here. You can make and receive phone calls. And then, of course, if you'd like to get back to the Pioneer, you can either hit the menu button and or the clock here, and it will return you to Pioneer. Now, all these features are cool, but kind of meaningless if you don't have a great sound package to back those up. And this one does. So we'll go ahead and play some music and take a look at them. To access our sound settings, there's a couple different ways we can do that. We can select EQ here in the front, and this will take us directly to our EQ, tap, and we can adjust. Or if we hit gears, come down here to the radiating speaker and tap that, this will also take us to our sound settings. Now, the difference is this way will take us to all our sound settings. The other way will only take you to your EQ. So if we tap EQ here, we have our presets, super bass, powerful, natural, vocal, and flat, as well as custom 1 and 2. If we tap the screen, we can go ahead and adjust them any way we want, and then we can switch to custom 2 and add in another one. Hit the back arrow, balance and fader. There again, we can move that around anywhere we want. Then, of course, we can use the arrows for fine tuning. Mute. This will allow you to do attenuation, mute, or turn the feature off. So if you don't want that button to do it, you can have it not do that. Source level adjuster. This is great for things like an iPhone or an Android phone or some form of portable media player or something that wasn't recorded all that well. What it allows you to do is level out the performance of the radio's volume compared to FM. So if you're listening to FM, then you switch to another source and it's not as loud as the FM, you can go ahead and turn it up. If it's louder than the FM, you can go ahead and turn it down. That way, when you go from source to source to source, they all play at the same level. Subwoofer on and off. Default on one of these is off, as in most Pioneer radios. So if you get done hooking it up and you're like, dude, where's my bass? It's off. Tap it, turn it on. Speaker level is going to be part of the time correction that is built into this unit. This allows you to go in and adjust the volume of each one of the speakers that's connected to the radio. This is something also that's going to change when we go to network mode. But here is also where your subwoofer level control is. You can also tell it where you're going to sit. There's several different places in the EQ where you can adjust this, so you don't have to do it here. We'll go ahead and hit the back arrow. Crossover. This has high pass front on and off, rear on and off, and subwoofer on and off. So you can do a full pass through if you'd like, or use any of them on their own. Just simply drag it one way or the other to change the frequency, and then move it up or down to switch between 6, 12, 18, and 24 dB for the highs, as well as 30, 36 for the sub. Now if you tap subwoofer settings, take you directly to the subwoofer crossover all by itself. Listening position, this is one of the places you can tell it where you're sitting in the car. Time alignment is going to be the other one. Here you can go ahead and measure between your head and each one of the speakers and put those numbers into here, and then it'll go ahead and add the appropriate time delay to the speaker so that the sound gets to your head all at the same time. Then you can switch over to the speaker level control and turn them up or down as needed to help with your imaging. Auto EQ and measured EQ, those are going to be done by using the optional Pioneer microphone, and if you hit eject while the unit is off, you'll notice here is what looks like an aux jack input. This is where the microphone is going to plug into. To set it up using that, you do have to make sure the radio is in standby, and then these will illuminate. Save settings and load settings. If you've gone through the trouble of setting this thing up and making it sound amazing, go ahead and tap save settings. That'll save all your work, and then if the battery's disconnected, you can use load settings to automatically get you back where you were. Bass boost is a 4-step bass enhancement. That's great if you're listening to something where the bass is kind of not all that wonderful. You can use this to help bring it back. However, if you're listening to something that has a ton of bass, make sure it's turned off. Rear speaker output. This is helpful if you are using the rear seat entertainment and the rear speakers are playing your music. Instead of using fader, you can just go ahead and turn them off so they don't bother the little kids in the back seat. Loudness control. You have 3-step loudness control. This is helpful if you are a low level listener. If you put it on one of these, this will help to boost the output of the radio when you're listening to it at those low levels and make it sound more dynamic. Automatic level control is for recorded media to make them all kind of sound the same. You have 3 modes. Basically what that's used for is if you have a CD or an iPod or something on a thumb drive that the volume is all over the place, this will go ahead and level it out for you. And then sound retriever, default is mode 1. This is designed to help that compressed media sound more live-like and vivid. Now we'll go ahead and set this up for network mode and show you the differences. Now to get to network mode, or to get back to standard mode if you selected network, go ahead and select gears, select your tools, scroll up until it says restore settings, select all settings, and select restore. This will go ahead and bomb the radio back to out of the box settings. This is also what we're going to do at the end of this video so that we can put this back to all factory defaults because we've played with it and messed everything up. It's something you can do as well if you've just got the radio and you just want to go ahead and start pressing buttons to see what it can do. Restore settings is useful for that. Select network mode, select OK, select OK. We'll go ahead and play some music. You do have to have music playing to get into the EQ. Select your EQ settings. Now once you're back into the EQ, graphic EQ stays the same. Balance, you'll notice, is now just left or right. Speaker level control has changed. Now these two are for your tweeter and these two are for your mid-range. The subwoofer has stayed the same. Time alignment has also changed. Now you can enter the value for your tweeter, your mid-range, and your subwoofer. There's no rear fill on this at all. And then of course, save settings, load settings, and all the other settings stay the same. Now that we've talked about the audio, the sources, let's go ahead into the menu system and just talk about some of the back-end stuff that you might want to play with. To do that, we'll go ahead and select gears. We'll select tools, input output settings. If you're not going to be using your aux input and you'd like to shut it off, you can do that so it goes away from your menu. If you select AV input, you can select source, camera, or off. So if you're not doing it from the camera setup page, you can do it here. Demo mode on and off is going to be located here. System language in case you didn't set it up and you want to change it. Beep tone on and off. So if you don't like touching the beep beep all the time, you can turn that off. If the screen is off for any reason, you can do touchscreen calibration here as well. Picture adjustment, your brightness, contrast, color, and dimmer levels are also accessed here. You can adjust the camera as well. So if you're using a factory backup camera and it seems too dim or there's not enough contrast, you can adjust that as well. System information. This is where you're going to see if there's an update for your unit by checking to see what your current firmware is. So if you select firmware information, right now we're running 1.00. I'm sure that is going to change as time goes forward. To update it, you're going to do it in the firmware update tab. Now, as we said, the unit has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. To set that up, the process is exactly the same. Go to the settings on your phone, go to Bluetooth, tap the Bluetooth. Once it comes up, select yes, select pair. If you want it to sync your contacts, hit allow. If you don't, hit don't. Now go ahead and leave it on this screen. Don't switch it. Once the unit says connected, go ahead and go to your main menu or this screen here. Tap the phone icon. Now what it's going to do is it's going to search via Wi-Fi. What it's doing is it's using the Bluetooth to authenticate the password. Once it comes up and says use CarPlay or the Android Auto graphic appears, go ahead and connect. It'll kick out the Bluetooth on CarPlay and then you're good to go. As you can see, no wires.
Alright guys, if you like this video, please subscribe, share, like, you know where you find us, Facebook, Instagram, and here in YouTube.
You guys have a great night as always. We'll see you later next time.
Bye.
Bye.